Hey guys, today I'm doing something a little bit different for this channel. I'm going to be using some Super Sculpey oven-baked clay, and I'm going to create the Tree of the Dead from the movie Sleepy Hollow by Tim Burton. This will be the first of my October Halloween-themed videos, and it's been a really long time since I played with clay. I've actually only sculpted a few times, and it was a few years ago when I started getting the idea that I wanted to try sculpting, and I found some videos on YouTube by a guy named Josh Foreman. He's an incredible artist and does a lot of different things now, but a few years ago he posted a whole bunch of videos on how to work with Sculpey clay, and he basically taught me everything I needed to know to get started. There's a link to his channel in the description. So I started off making the armature. Basically, I need a strong structure to base everything on and put the clay around. So I used some black piping for the base, some armature wire, and then built up the volume with tin foil, and then the green wire is some floral wire for really small branches. And now I'm running my clay through a pasta machine. It basically does all the hard work of kneading the clay and making it a little softer and squishing it into nice thin strips for you to work with. With Super Sculpey, you want to work with fairly thin layers of clay, and so using that aluminum foil builds out the body, and then you want to use just thin layers of clay around it. This makes sure that it hardens correctly once you put it in the oven and bake it. The great part about Super Sculpey is you can continue to work on it for days or weeks or months even, and it only hardens once you put it in the oven. It can get a little bit firm, but there are different methods to soften it and smooth it. And right now, as I put each piece together, I'm kind of just smoothing the edges of each one so that they become one piece. So here I started to make some roots out of tin foil first and then putting clay on them. I didn't know exactly what all I was going to do with these yet. I just started adding them and smoothing them in. I think I took out one or two in the end, but I just started adding them all over the place and tried to smooth them in to the main structure. This piece on the back is going to be a large boulder that the tree is kind of growing on, and so I'm making it out of tin foil here, and then I put some clay over it and start texturing it before I bake it, separate from the tree. To give it some texture, I'm rolling this ball of tin foil around, and it creates that kind of uneven surface that rocks tend to have. So now I've already baked the rock, and I'm moving on to texturing the tree. I wanted to draw in some really good lines of the bark and the grain of the tree going up and swirling around. So I started drawing deeper, bigger lines and try to really draw out the direction of the grain in this step. Once I did a good amount of the deeper lines, I took this tool that has multiple small pieces of metal and just started scraping it all over so many times across the surface to add that really small detail. This part took a while, but it's probably one of my favorite parts of sculpting with clay. So now to get started painting. I began with just a black color on the rock and a very dark brown on the tree. I made sure to really thin down my paint so it got into all the cracks and crevices, as this is a good first coat of paint. After that dried, I took a gray color and started dry brushing it over the tree. All of the raised edges of the texture will just get a little bit of that gray and it starts to highlight that texture. Then I used a pretty thin down layer of this brown. I kind of go back and forth with different colors, working with thin paint so that they kind of build on each other. And for the rock now, I'm sponging on a gray color as well to give that some texture. So here, as you can see, I'm using different shades of paint, all kind of blending together because they're so watered down. So it gives a variation of colors across. And then I used a darker wash again to darken it all down, but then I took a paper towel and kind of wiped that off of some of the raised areas so they remain more highlighted. The colors in the movie are almost black and white, so I knew I wanted the tree to be pretty dark anyway. For the dirt, I took some potting soil and ground it up in an old coffee grinder so that it had a really nice thin consistency, and started dropping that all over a layer of glue. And then I soaked it all with some watered down isopropyl alcohol and a watered down glue mixture. Then for this layer, I took a bunch of dried leaves from the backyard and ground it up in a coffee grinder, and sprinkling that around, it really just makes a nice layer of realistic looking leaves. To get a little more color variation, I'm using some brown pigment powder on the tree and making sure to brush it on really good so it doesn't have a really heavy effect. Now to start building the scene all around the tree. I took these large sheets of pink foam insulation, painted them black, and then just started drilling holes and hot gluing large sticks found in the backyard, standing up. My idea is for them to look like dead trees sticking up in the darkness in the far background as we film this tree. I then made a makeshift tarp tent outside so that I could pump a lot of fog in and started shooting. Thank you so much to all my patrons. If you're interested in joining on Patreon, just hit the link in the description and you can see all the different tiers of how to see more behind the scenes or even get digital downloads and things from me each month. Also, I have my website where I sell my 3D models if you're interested in that. And as always, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe so you can see my next project. See you next time.